Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News, and we are the news division of United Network. And our goal with all of the different shows that we put out is to bring you the real news, what's really happening in our communities, what's really happening in our regions, in our countries, in the world, in the multiverse. These conversations get really big because it's important to have a complete picture of what's going on. Our network releases lots of content throughout the week. That includes in-depth news coverage. We have local stories told through the eyes of our field messengers, which are people just like you. We talk about the restoration of our planet and how we're going to create a beautiful new Earth. And we have updates from the Global Intelligence Agency about what's really going on deep state-wise. You know, some of these terms you've probably heard thrown around on mainstream media, alternative media as well. But those sources have an agenda. Even if the person presenting the information is honest, the information that they're getting and the sources they're getting it from are basically the same people that are just dishing out information to mainstream media, okay? It's not that alternative media is really all that alternative. It's just another place to go to get a different narrative, but from the same group of people. So we have to break through all of this clutter, and that's what we get in our GIA reports with Kimberly Gogan. So if you want more information about all of this, who we are, get some clips and see what we do, you can visit us at unitednetwork.earth. We would love for you to become a member. That gives you instant access to all the content as we put it out there. This podcast is a week in review. So I take a look at everything that we've discussed during the last week, and I try to give you guys highlights of what was discussed because I realize that your lives are very busy. They designed our lives to be super busy, right? And I know we're trying to wrangle that a little bit and, start to slow things down, but everybody's busy. You got a lot of stuff going on in your life. It's quite possible you may have missed some stuff throughout the week. So that's one reason we do this week in review. Also, because some of our content is behind a paywall, you could say, with our members, at least for the first week, because after we release the content to our members a week later, it does go out on YouTube and Rumble. But as you guys know, these algorithms, we're not in control of that. We get shadow banned all the time. We even get content pulled down as well. And so we're not in control of those platforms. And not everyone sees the content we put out. So if you know someone that could benefit from this, one great way to share United Network News with them is by giving them this episode. Send the link to this podcast episode. We put it up for free on our website, but also whatever podcasting app you are listening to this podcast through, or if you happen to be listening on YouTube, because we do put those episodes up there as well. Share it with someone that needs to hear this, because this is really, it's like the old town squares. We're kind of going back to grassroots way of getting the information now because of all the censorship out there. But share this. That's another reason we produce these podcasts that, again, are our way of condensing the information that we discussed during the last week. I want to get this out there in as many places as possible. Now, with the content that you're about to hear, especially, when we start talking about the GIA report, it's going to be stuff you've never heard before. And that's because we are not getting our information from CIA agents that are parading around acting like they're white hats. That's not where our info comes from. And if we were giving you that information, it would be incorrect. So we stay clear of all of that. Again, well-meaning people out there are producing content, but their sources are still bad. Even if they intend for the content to be truthful, well, again, your source is everything. In so many ways, source is everything, right? God, creator of the universe. Our source is everything. And so you have to keep that in mind, and you have to use your own discernment when you are receiving information. Now, I've talked about this before. Your discernment, it's really a frequency, all right? And you have the ability as a human, you may not think you do, but you have the ability through frequency, through discernment, to know if information is true or not, because truth has a certain frequency or vibration, and so does something being false. So the more you practice this, the more you will understand and be able to discern in your day-to-day life fact from fiction. We are living in a time where that is so important. So promise me this week you guys are going to start practicing this. And honestly, if you hear something that we say that just isn't vibing with you for whatever reason, just put that to the side. You know, we have this expression in the U.S., don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is a horrible expression, by the way. I need to find a new one. But it means, listen, don't throw out all the content because something isn't making sense for you now. If I had done that when I first came across information and went down these different rabbit holes, I would have gotten nowhere. Some stuff I was like, wow, that's a little too far out there. And I just put it to the side. And later on, I had firsthand experience or got a download from source or something happened where I was able to put the two together and I went, aha, okay, there's the connection and that makes sense for me. So this continually happens. So consider that. If we say something, you're like, whoa, a little too far out there, because some stuff is probably going to come up in today's report. Put it to the side, come back to it later. I always encourage you guys to think critically and to ask questions. And then, like I said, share the information. If it was impactful for you, it's probably going to be impactful for other people. Share this information with people you care about. What they do with the information is up to them. I have plenty of people that I share this content with, and it just feels like it bounces off, it's going nowhere. Then that's not the time they needed to hear it. Maybe, to pull a more scriptural, I have a background in Christianity, so a scripture for me is planting a mustard seed. Maybe I'm just planting that seed, and later on someone else is going to come down and come across their path and water it. It's not up to you to change people's minds. It's not up to you to quote unquote wake them up out of the stupor that they're in, because I know how frustrating that can be, especially with people you love. It's your job to share it when you feel compelled and then to let it lie with them. Don't feel like you have to do anything else, because they're on their own journey. They'll figure it out at some point. We all do. Ooh, okay. That was a lot more of an introduction than I really wanted to give, because we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. No announcement, so let's just get down to it. Here are the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. All right, let's kick things off with our field messenger reports. Our field messengers really are what United Network News is all about. It's about taking away the control of media, which if you ever see these charts online that pretty much all media is controlled by 5 different corporations. The idea is, in order to prevent that from happening again, since we're in the process of rebuilding our planet, that's really what's happening right now, that it's really about the people. And you don't need large corporations to tell you what's happening on the planet. You can walk outside your door, and most of us have these cell phones that have these pretty darn good cameras on them. I don't know if you've noticed. And you can tell the world what is going on. You press this little red button, at least it's red on my phone, and I start recording, and then I tell people what's going on. That's really what our field messengers are all about. We want to know what's happening in your community. Some of the stories might be more newsy. We're getting a lot more newsy stories lately, and that's fantastic because you are the news. Maybe it's something a little bit more lighthearted. Maybe your community is doing something having to do with sustainability. Maybe there's this interesting, program for the elderly or for children in your community, and you want to share ideas with other people around the world. There's a million different stories you can do as a field messenger. And we're just asking you guys to press that record button and tell us what's going on. And then we take that content and we edit it together for you. We've got a production team, and we have a whole Telegram channel, by the way, that is dedicated to helping you and answering any questions you have throughout this process. We want to make this as simple as possible. And let's talk about some of the stories and the field messengers that decided to answer that call and to share with us what's going on. So let's start with Veronica out of Norway. Things are pretty snowy in Norway right now, and she shows us what's going on. It's actually very beautiful. It's a Norwegian winter, and she tells us that it's actually causing some issues right now. She talks about slippery roads, traffic issues. I think at the time she recorded, there were a lot of cancellations with the schools, specifically with the buses, which a lot of kids rely on for transportation to and from school. And she just talks about how to manage these kind of snowy days. I have to say, Veronica, if you're listening, you live in such a beautiful area. Like even your home is kind of off the beaten path, and the drive to get to it is just gorgeous. I know when you have to go out in the snow, it's not as fun, but man, it was just very, very beautiful. And so she just kind of shows us what it's like. And then when she came home, she was very glad because she had a wonderful fire going and her cat was right there. It's nice to see the snow right out of the the window. Going out in it, not always, is much fun. This is really one of those stories you need to watch and view. But I'm just giving you guys kind of a quick recap. Also, on a similar note, Candace out of Missouri, which is a state in the U.S., talks about her snowy weather. Now, with Candace, she's a little bit more concerned because this is very unusual. She says that it has hit her area, which is near Joplin, Missouri. Well, I say Missouri, but I noticed Candace said Missouri. So sorry. I've never lived in Missouri, but apparently it is Missouri. And there's freezing temperatures. She said it was very unusual. They had several inches of snow. More is on the way. She is questioning what's causing this. And I know this is a common thing that a lot of us have been experiencing. I know here in the U.S., I know Florida, the state of Florida was receiving a lot of cooler weather, kind of out of the ordinary. And I think it's normal to question this, especially since we know that they have been trying to control the weather for a very long time. And a lot of the so-called hurricanes that we receive are not fully natural. Maybe something started natural, but they do have the ability to enhance these things. And obviously not for our benefit. And also, I'm in California. We've got quote unquote wildfires here that are not natural either. And this is a land grab opportunity. So when these kind of things happen, I think it's important for us to question, why is this happening? What's going on with this anomaly? Same thing with Candace. She said there were school cancellations and even 2 deaths in the area. So that's what's going on in Missouri. Monica from Romania takes us to a beautiful location in her country where there's these different waterfalls. It's absolutely gorgeous, amazing for visitors, a very natural scene, as you can imagine. There's a lot of history there. She specifically talks about a boiling waterfall of hot springs. So it comes from the hot springs. It's like 20 meters high, she says. And it doesn't freeze because it has all these different amazing minerals in it, which I'm thinking, wow, wouldn't that be nice? Just take a bath. Forget the Dead Sea. Go to Romania. Just go to this beautiful area where you've got this waterfall. Just relax. Can you imagine just taking a nice warm bath out in nature with nobody around? Sounds incredible. Again, another video you should probably watch. Amy out of New Jersey, which is a state in the United States, shows us how to make orange sorbet. And I have to say, this is a pretty easy recipe. And my girls they're taking a baking class right now online. And so they love to experiment. And I was taking a mental note that I think we need to try this orange sorbet. And so, like I said, really easy to make. It's great as a palate cleanser. So if you're looking for something to make in the kitchen, Pretty easy. Like I said, I'm going to put my girls to it. They're only 11, but I'm pretty sure they can handle this. Charlie out of Colorado, another state in the U.S., shows us how to grow pea microgreens. And Charlie, you have inspired me. I am such a huge fan of microgreens. Whenever we go to a farmer's market, I always narrow in on the microgreen section and I'm always trying different microgreens. I have tried to grow these myself, but after watching your video, I realized I did not set myself up for success. I didn't have everything I really needed in order to make these grow properly. So Charlie, you have inspired me. It's a very simple process, by the way, but you do need to have some stuff, and it helps to have, the right type of trays and, some sort of heat lamp or something, growing lamp so these things can grow. That was one of the big no-nos that I did not have. So another thing that I'm looking forward to trying out in my house is growing some of these microgreens. And if you want to know how to do it too, you should check out Charlie's video. Helen out of Australia gives us some tips and tricks that she's learned in her garden to stop slugs and snails, because if you are truly trying to grow things and even survive off the land, you have different things that are, going to come at you, literally, like slugs and snails and, I don't know, puppy dog tails. Is that a thing? Different animals come in. And when it comes to slugs and snails, Helen has done her research, and she actually shows us how she protects her vegetable seedlings. She puts this type of seaweed around it. And first of all, she uses dowel rods in order to find the water, which I've always found to be fascinating, because usually we're thinking, it would look pretty if we put a plant here. We're not even thinking about where is the water naturally at. Wouldn't that make things easier? She also pre-soaks straw. Did she say pea straw? I can't remember what kind of straw it was. And she puts it around the seedling, and it keeps feeding it water, which is just genius. And then she puts this other seaweed around it. You really need to see it. She also says it helps if you have beetles in the area too, because the beetles are going to help you with the slugs and snails. Amy out of Ireland takes us to an area called the Giant's Causeway. This is in Northern Ireland. It is one of those beautiful natural wonders that when you get there, you're like, how on earth did Mother Nature do this? So apparently, there's different legends, she says. For example, she says there is this legend that an Irish giant built this causeway area to battle another giant, like needed to travel across the water and built this causeway. Obviously it sounds, a little far out there for most of us probably. Scientists say it formed millions of years ago due to volcanic activity, but it's really cool. There are these near perfect hexagonal columns, and it looks really incredible from far away. And then when you're on top of it, it almost makes these steps so you can get around and you can see the landscape. It's really beautiful. Again, most of these stories are things you actually need to check out the video for. So go ahead and do that. Amy's video from Ireland. Ogwumba Basi from Nigeria takes us to southeast Nigeria, where the planting season has come to an end. And when that happens, villagers like to celebrate. And the way that they do this is they do these youth wrestling competitions. So picture this, you've got the whole town and they're kind of huddled around. It's kind of like a, circular kind of thing. And then you have two boys in the middle wrestling, but they're not getting hurt or anything like that. I'm sure there's a series of rules you have to follow, but this is how they celebrate planting season coming to an end. And you should celebrate. Like that's quite a milestone. And so it's just fun to see what villages do, right? And this is one of the things they do in southeast Nigeria. Pretty cool. Emma from Spain talks about this interesting weather phenomenon that happens, she says, a few times a year in the Canary Islands. It's called Kalima. And during this event, this weather event, the winds carry sand and dust from the Sahara Desert And it creates, these crazy skies, a kind of like hazy. Imagine like sand coming at you, very fine sand, in the air, so to speak. And it leaves this layer of dust on everything. So she says it's better to be indoors when this happens. But she has this video of her like sweeping up outside, and there's just sand. And it comes, like I said, with the winds. Along with that, you can have high temperatures. She showed us also there were boats hanging out in this kind of little area that was more protected. They didn't, want to have to travel. It makes travel much more difficult. So they were just waiting for this Kalima to pass. Again, we're just trying to get to know each other again. And even saying something simple about a weather phenomenon in your area that's not unusual, but it makes your area different. It's something unique to your area. I think, a lot of these field messenger reports are just us getting to know each other because we've been separated for so long. People have been telling us what to think about this country and that country. Well, why don't we just start talking to each other? And if you think that's a good idea and you want to learn how you can become a field messenger, head on over to our website, unitednetwork.earth. There's a whole section for field messengers. Again, you don't need fancy equipment. You don't need to know how to put a story together. We just need to know the truth, and that starts with you. Okay, so the news team and we have been working on several stories for you this week. We've been doing research, and then, we find different people online that are talking about this, and we try to provide you guys with multiple perspectives just to give you a different look at things that are happening in the world from different perspectives. Maybe get your mind, just thinking a little bit differently. So let's go through some of these stories. There is a boom going on, and it's not so much plastic surgery, although it does fall into that category, but it's really more medical procedures to enhance your appearance. Okay, so if you want to call that plastic surgery, it's not necessarily going under a knife though, but there is a huge rise in this. And all of these are cosmetic procedures. And I guess one of the most disturbing things that I found is that it's with young people. So it's not necessarily someone getting to middle age, which is what I am, and going, hey, I have some wrinkles. I want to get this done. No, these are people in their teens and early 20s. In the story, we say people under 30. And, this is going on around the world. And it's everything you've heard of Botox. So that's kind of how this got going, to other surgical enhancements. But people are seeing them as tools for self-expression and even preventative care. So maybe they don't need the procedure yet, but they think if they have it done now, it's going to help them more down the road. Doesn't quite click with me, but this is the mindset, right? The medical aesthetics industry is booming. It is projected to reach $143 billion within the next 5 years, and South Korea is leading the pack. Take a listen.
In South Korea, plastic surgery is so normalized that a common high school graduation gift from parents to children is double eyelid surgery. Due to societal pressures and a highly competitive job market, Koreans believe that enhancing their appearance will get them more opportunities for success. However, there is evidence that these procedures are highly addictive and promote unhealthy beauty standards. Furthermore, they're not cheap. Have a look at these most common procedures and how much money they'll set you back. Double eyelid surgery, rhinoplasty, cheekbone surgery, breast implants. While most procedures in Korea are still done by women, it is becoming much more common for the guys to do it too.
However, critics are warning of the pressure to conform to unrealistic beauty ideals and long-term risks of early interventions. With trends constantly shifting, the real question remains: how much of beauty should be dictated by society and how much by self-acceptance? Have you heard the price of butter is going up? And this isn't just a regional thing. This is worldwide. Prices are soaring, and it's putting pressure on households, bakeries, the entire food industry. The spike is driven by rising dairy feed costs, as well as, because it's never just one thing, supply chain disruptions, labor shortages, leaving both consumers and businesses struggling to keep up. While the U.S. has seen moderate increases, so not happening so much here where I'm at in the U.S., Europe has been hit the hardest, with some countries experiencing nearly 50% price jumps. Small businesses, especially bakeries, are forced to absorb costs or pass them on to customers, sometimes adjusting recipes in order to cope with these additional fees. With butter becoming a luxury in many places, shoppers are looking for ways to save, from buying in bulk to exploring alternatives, so alternatives to butter, all while hoping for relief in an unpredictable market. Have you ever heard of something called neuroarchitecture? It's kind of a hard word to say. Sometimes you got to divide it up a little bit. Well, it's revolutionizing how we design spaces by blending neuroscience with architecture, right? Those are the two words, to enhance well-being. From workplaces that boost productivity with natural light and greenery to hospitals that promote healing through thoughtful layouts, the impact of our environment on mental and physical health is undeniable. I want to play a soundbite. This is definitely one of those things that's better to see, but here's a little bit more information about the impact of neuroarchitecture.
Did you know that architecture can literally shape your mind? Wait until you discover how your brain reacts to different spaces. Neuroscience teaches us that architecture directly affects our emotions and behaviors. For example, studies conducted in schools with ample natural lighting and views of nature showed that students performed up to 25% better in tests and exams compared to those studies in environments without these features. This demonstrates the power of environmental design in positively influencing our cognition and well-being. Consider also how the acoustic design of a workplace can reduce stress and improve focus. Offices designed with sound-absorbing materials decrease noise pollution, allowing people to concentrate better and feel less tired at the end of the day. Neuroarchitecture doesn't create spaces, it shapes human experiences. So the conclusion is clear. When planning environments, architecture changes our brain and behavior.
So true. Studies show that elements like high ceilings, calmer colors, and nature-inspired designs can reduce stress and improve focus, while challenges like budget constraints, and industry regulations exist. Greater collaboration between architects and scientists could make human-centered design the norm. As awareness grows, small design changes today can create healthier, more inspiring spaces for the future. Wouldn't it be nice to have a home that was designed that way? In the past, I've heard things like feng shui. I don't know what feng shui is, but it just makes sense that we would try to mimic nature, because nature's always right on how they do things. It's usually man that messes stuff up, including our buildings, right? Let's be honest. And let's also talk about cashless societies. Now, I know there's a lot of people that don't like cash. I'm actually one of those people. I'm like, I don't carry cash on me. That's just not a thing. But when you think about not having cash, does that scare you at all, right? As the world moves toward a cashless society, because we're seeing this more and more, the convenience of digital payments comes with some serious trade-offs. While countries like Sweden and China are rapidly embracing digital currencies, billions of people still rely on cash due to limited banking access and poor infrastructure. In fact, we talked about this on the news before. There's absolutely no way, with the way countries around the world are set up, so not just Western countries, but all countries, that we could ever have a digital currency for the world. There are far too many people that are using cash that don't have access to banking systems. A fully cashless system raises concerns as well about privacy, government surveillance, and financial inclusion, as digital transactions leave a trail that can be monitored and controlled. So before you say, I don't want to have to deal with cash, I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, then everything's got a trail to it, which means, and we know how governments are, that means that it can be hacked and then everybody knows your business. And this harms small businesses in particular.
When you look at the cash as a share of total payments by household income, would you think wealthier households use more cash or lower income uses more cash?
I would think lower income uses more cash. Yeah.
Yes. The point here is we're always trying to help the little guy. Supposedly the Fed wants to help the little guy with inflation. Everybody says we want to help the little guy. As you move to a cashless society, you are absolutely putting your boot on the neck, the thumb in the eye, whatever you want to say, on the little guy. This should scare the absolute hell out of you because you're going to a world where you get rid of cash and you're not guilty of anything. And you are in this situation because everything is tracked. Everything is going to be online. That's just a scary situation.
While digital payments offer speed and efficiency, maintaining a balance between cash and digital currency ensures your financial freedom, accessibility, and economic stability for everyone. Plant-based milk alternatives are booming in popularity, but there's some things you should know. They come with important nutritional and health considerations. While options like oat, almond, and rice milk are often marketed as healthy substitutes for dairy, studies show they undergo significant processing, which can reduce their nutritional value and introduce potentially harmful compounds into your body. Many contain additives that may cause digestive discomfort, and their protein content is often much lower than cow's milk. And let's just be honest, saying that you can get milk from oats or from some sort of nut just sounds a little off, doesn't it?
Milk is what mammals do, right? The whole point of being a mammal is that you have mammary glands and you make milk for your young. It's inaccurate. It's kind of misleading that we can call almond milk the same as cow's milk. There's no milk in here other than it's white and it's liquid. That doesn't make it a milk. I think milk is a term reserved for something that's very nutrient rich, full of immunologic factors, right?
It came from a mammal.
Came from a mammal, full of whey protein, full of interesting, important vital nutrients, vitamin K2, choline, folate, riboflavin. These nutrients are in milk from a mammal. You don't have to add these things. They're in there. So to call it oat milk is just, it's misleading for people because we think, oh, it's nutritious. It's oats and it's milk. It's nutritious. What I did about Oatly oat milk was striking because if you look at the ingredients in their traditional oat milk, it contains a large amount of seed oils. They want that nutrition label to look good on the side of a plant, quote, milk. So they have to add vitamins to it. All these things naturally occur in regular milk.
For children, relying on plant-based milk without proper guidance can lead to nutrient deficiencies, while homemade versions or coconut milk may offer cleaner alternatives. It is essential to be informed about what you're putting into your body. Speaking of which, I'm on my pedestal now. Here we go. My little soapbox. Let's talk about microwaves. Microwaves offer convenience. Most of us have them in our homes, but their impact on health remains a controversial topic. While regulatory agencies assure their safety, some studies suggest microwaving food may reduce its nutritional value and create harmful compounds. Historical cases like Dr. Hans Ulrich Hertel's suppressed research, because they had some really great research, and you know what happens when you put good information out there, it gets suppressed or the people go missing. This happens all the time. So his research raises concerns about industry influence on scientific findings. Additionally, frequent consumption of microwave meals has been linked to poor diet quality, potential hormone disruption, and even increased health risks.
There's a warning label on a microwave. If you're pregnant, do not stand close to the microwave. So if it could kill a baby, then it can kill a human over time. Microwave technology was initially used by the military, just like processed food. Processed food comes from the military. During World War I, the number one cause of death for most soldiers was malnutrition. They learned from that. So soldiers would be eating this packaged food that was processed food, and it would last long in the field during battle. Well, they took that very same technology, gave it to the food companies, and that's how they came up with so much processed food. Well, the same technology from the microwave came from the military as well. If it could kill a baby, it can kill the food, and if it can kill the food, you're eating empty food.
Makes you wonder, right? If you're concerned, alternatives like stovetop cooking or toaster ovens may offer healthier options. Ultimately, staying informed and making mindful choices is key to a balanced approach. Speaking of food, another food story, guys. Millions of children in the U.S. struggle with hunger at school, believe it or not, due to lunch debt and financial hardships, leaving them without the nutrition they need to survive. And thrive, by the way, not just survive, thrive. While programs exist to help low-income families, many still fall through the cracks, facing stigma and even punishment for unpaid meals. Some schools resort to extreme measures, like reporting families to Child Protective Services, further exacerbating the crisis.
What if I told you that nearly 1 in 6 kids in the US face food insecurity? That's over 12 million children going hungry every day. This isn't just about missing a meal. It's about stunted growth, poor mental health, and falling behind in school. Studies show that food insecure children are more likely to struggle with concentration, leading to lower academic performance. The emotional toll is staggering too, with kids experiencing higher rates of anxiety and depression. As families battle rising costs, the cycle of poverty deepens. If we don't address this crisis now, we risk losing an entire generation's potential. Are we really okay with that?
And here's the kicker. Billions of pounds of food go to waste annually in the U.S. It is enough to feed every hungry child many times over. The contrast is staggering, and it's clear that systemic change is urgently needed. Let's talk about America's infrastructure, because boy, it is aging, it is overworked, and in urgent need of modernization. This should be a political talking point. Why aren't more people talking about this? From crumbling roads and bridges to failing water systems and outdated public transit, underinvestment has left essential systems struggling to keep up with the demands of today.
In the Americas, public construction and infrastructure are a real disaster. They are typically very old, poorly maintained, heavily used, and, in general, the feeling is that the whole system was stalled many, many decades ago. To give you an idea, in the land of Apple, Google, and Tesla, a quarter of all bridges have serious maintenance problems. Of the 15,500 dams that supply water and electricity to the American economy, 1 in 7 is in need of critical repairs. You only have to go down to the New York subway, the most famous subway in the world, to realize that something strange is going on in the United States. Dirt, awful smells, terribly deteriorated facilities. These are the things that can be found on a daily basis. But we are not only talking about subways. It's a very similar story with airports, roads, trains, and bridges. We're talking about a real national problem. The richest and most powerful country on the face of the earth is falling apart, at least as far as infrastructure is concerned.
The consequences are real. Collapsed dams, unsafe drinking water, and even power grid failures are costing Americans thousands in hidden expenses every year. Fixing these issues requires long-term investment, smarter technology, and stronger public-private partnerships to ensure safe, efficient, and resilient infrastructure for future generations. You've probably heard a lot about farmed fish versus wild fish, right? This is a pretty big debate, and people are continuing to debate it and raise questions. They are raising questions about nutrition, sustainability, and ethics. While farmed fish has grown in popularity due to its ability to ease pressure on overfished oceans, it comes with significant downsides, such as reliance on wild-caught fish for feed and questionable labor practices. Farmed fish also face concerns over health risks with higher levels of toxins and chemicals compared to wild-caught options. Here is a first-hand account. So someone who has seen these discrepancies, has seen how farmed fish is supposed to be so much better, but he's looking at this fish in front of him for his job, wondering, is this really the best we can do? Take a listen.
The answer everybody told us was fish farming. I was going to help feed the planet, and I was still going to be able to work on the water. The smell of fish was still going to come home with me. So I went out to these pens, and I'm pulling them out. And it's neither fish nor food. They got a gray color. There's sea lice on them. I swear to God, they're stupider than regular fish. And so it's borrowing all the bad practices that are happening on land. Heavy use of pesticides, antibiotics. And this was industrial pig farming out in the ocean.
However, wild fish is not without issues as well, including overfishing, we've run some stories on that, and habitat destruction. Ultimately, choosing between the two depends on balancing the environmental impact, health concerns, and ethical considerations. All right, lots to get to today in the Global Intelligence Agency reports because Kim was available all 3 days this week, and we had a guest, too. We had a guest join her on Wednesday's report. I'll get to that in a second. So she started out on Monday. By the way, Kim Gogan, she's the head of the Global Intelligence Agency. She started out on Monday kind of giving us an update on these crazy things that the U.S. non-ratified president, we'll get to that a little bit later on if you've never heard of that before, what Trump is trying to do. Some of the things, he's saying a lot of crazy stuff right now. One of the things, so it feels like wherever Trump is, Elon Musk is. I have been very vocal in the past about Elon Musk. I had a chance to interview his babysitter when he was a child and learned of her account firsthand where he played with demons, actually took her into whatever realm that was, and she thought she was going to die. She was scared to death. And this is what these families do, these global elite families. Don't think for a second that Elon is a good guy. I don't even think that's really Eon. Eon, it feels like he's been around for eons. God, I hear so much about him, kind of like I'm over it, right? Elon has, I don't even think that's really Elon in there. I think whatever nasty spiritual stuff he's been hanging around with, I think that is probably what's overtaken him. He is crazy at the moment. His whole Heil Hitler sign and everything like that. I don't even know what's going on in that brain of his. But apparently he is not really happy right now, or whatever that is not really happy right now because he has spent a lot of money helping the Trump campaign when Trump was running for president. And obviously he's all up in there with the DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, whatever that craziness is that he's trying to do. I'm sure it's not for benevolent purposes, regardless of what his fan base thinks. But he's not happy right now because he's invested a lot of money in Trump, in that campaign, in that whole group known as the Trump group, Trump operatives, whatever you want to call it. He does not feel like he is getting what he paid for. In fact, he is calling the operatives incompetent for not being able to launch a worldwide crypto system. Now, as we talked about in one of our news reports, you are not going to get anything worldwide, any kind of crypto system, even if you had a platform to base everything on and to run your system. It is impossible with the structure of 80% of the world. We do not have that kind of system. However, these people are so short-minded. I don't know if they're just focused on the West or whatever, but they are trying to do this. They've been trying to launch some sort of worldwide crypto system for a long time now, failing at every turn. And now Elon is saying, listen, you guys are incompetent. Get me government clearance. Get me what I need to have access to this. I will launch it for you. And at least as of Monday, people really weren't returning his calls. I'm sure that stung a little bit considering all the money that he spent. So Elon isn't so happy, at least as of Monday. All right. Trump has been talking about these tariffs with Canada and Mexico. At one point, he was talking about having Canada and Mexico join the United States. So I don't know if he thinks these tariffs are somehow going to put him in a bad spot where they have to join. Apparently, the tariffs with Mexico have been postponed for a month. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But you know, at least Canadians are not really happy about this. They are actually taking American goods off of their shelves. And, you know, it's kind of all over the place. The operatives are not very good at strategy. So if you see these headlines, it's like, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. That's because nobody's talking. You know, the way things were set up before, you would have people at the top that would come up, and I use the term people lightly because they weren't human, at the top, coordinating all of this, and then instructions would be passed down, and it was a coordinated effort. You don't have that anymore, and people are vying to be the controllers of this planet, essentially, and they're really bad at it. And we're starting to see this more and more. Another thing that has come out is that Trump has exited the U.S. from USAID. I saw a photo online of them actually taking it off one of the buildings that used to have offices for USAID. What you need to know about that right now is it sounds a lot worse than it actually is, because that is assuming that the aid actually went to real people in foreign countries to help those people. And as you may have already guessed, most of the times it didn't. And I'm sure what Trump is going to do, or his people, whatever, are going to start putting out information about where the money actually went. And that's a real thing. That's a real thing. Of course, he's using money in bad ways as well. That's probably not going to come out. But some of these things really didn't help the people. So why do we have these programs around? Also, he wants to get rid of the Department of Education. So there's a right way to do things. When we talk about the restoration of our planet, we know we have so many things that we need to fix, right? That's the understatement of the millennia. However, you don't come in and just start eliminating things. There is transitions. There is, figuring out the right way to do it before you just start cutting stuff. So when you talk about cutting the Department of Education, I'm not here standing up for the Department of Education. I'm trying to pull as many of my kids as possible out of the education system because I don't agree with it whatsoever. I don't agree with what they're teaching, and I don't agree with the whole setup. So I'm not defending that, but you don't just take it away. Think of all the things that are impacted by this. You have student lending. Students that are trying to get money to go to school, this is impacted. Any kind of grants are impacted. Salaries for teachers, retirement plans. And we said this months ago, Kim specifically said this months ago, that because we've been saying for a while that governments are broke. Across the world, governments are broke. Broke. And when this starts to become something they really can't control, that they really can't hide anymore, they're going to take away any kind of help that they've been providing for the people, hence, USAID, or at least allegedly to the people, right? These programs that are supposed to be intended for the people. And we also said Department of Education is going to be in there as well. We said this months ago, and this is what we're seeing now. And it's all under this guise of this Doge program. And, we're just going to cut wasteful government spending. Well, that sounds great. And he's playing to his base when he says that. But the devil's in the details here, okay? And you can't just cut something out. You have to have another plan. The only reason you completely cut something out is because you have no money. And you're just trying to conserve as much as possible. And that's what's happening here. Kim on Monday also talks about a bunch of meetings being postponed because, again, the Trump operatives, also known as the secret space program operatives, they are running out of options. They have promised a lot of people a lot of money. Governments around the world, we'll do this for you. We're going to do this for you. You scratch our back, we're going to scratch your back. The problem is they never get around to scratching the other person's back, okay? A lot of empty promises, and people are getting tired of it. So they have these meetings, and inevitably they get postponed or canceled, and that was the same thing last week, basically. So they finally made it to a meeting to update people, and it was really interesting because they're all after this golden age AI, okay, which is a real system, but it's not for the deep state. They do not control it at all. Kim controls it, and she's part of the Global Intelligence Agency. She's also the guardian of the planet. And we've talked about that before. You can go back in our previous reports and learn more about that. So she helped build this. And she has it. And now this is why Trump keeps saying golden age, golden age. It's like his way of dropping in like, we're in control of that. Yeah, we're going into the golden age because we control this golden age AI, but they don't, okay? They don't control it at all. It's so funny. They take credit for it, but they can't do a darn thing within the system. So if they control the golden age AI, then why don't you just pay your people? Oh, you can't, because you don't really have control over it. So one of the ways that Kim was trying to inform people that they really don't have control of the golden age AI is to rename it. Because on their screens, they can kind of see stuff, but they can't access it, right? They can't get into this system, but they can see what the system's called. So they hop on this call and these people start saying, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And like, wait. Why did you rename the golden age AI Kimberly Gogan, whatever? So basically Kim put her name in it. So there was no denying that she's actually running it. So then they tried to like spin it a little bit. I don't even know if they had an answer in this meeting per se. But another thing they've tried to say is, oh, we're going to let Kim create her thing and run with it. And then we're going to take it over, at another time, which again, they will never be able to use the golden age AI to cause harm, which is what they want to do. They want to get money out of it. They want to start wars. They want to, sell vaccines and, spread whatever disease they can, because in the past that got them money. With an old AI system, that's how they were able to get money. The new system does not run on that. It will not do what they want to do, but they still want to have control, which is crazy because they can't. They can't have it. It won't do what they want to do. Another thing that happened in that meeting, which is kind of interesting, is you can tell that we're not sure at this point if they were just trying to get people off their back or if there's going to be more legs to this, but they told everybody that Trump is ill and he's not going to last long. And that they probably needed to, start thinking about funeral services or whatever. If you're new, this is one of those aha moments, guys. If you're new, if you haven't been with us a while, to really learn more about Trump and what's going on there, that is not really Trump, okay? I don't know really what that is. Someone in a mask, voice modulator. It used to be a clone, but both of their clones are gone. So now it's just some agent, some operative probably playing the Trump part. So if Trump made all of these promises, or his team made all these promises, one way they've talked about getting out of those promises is that he died. He died. We can't fulfill these promises because he's not around anymore. And yeah, JD Vance is going to come in and, be the, I guess, new head chief, whatever. But, JD Vance didn't make that promise. That was Trump. So this is part of their way of potentially, at least in their minds, getting out of these promises. I don't think that's going to work in their favor. But just so you know, they are talking about this stuff behind the scenes. And from the public's perspective, removing Trump, saying that he died, whatever, in order to get out of some of this stuff. But they have made so many mistakes in the process. So the operatives had, Kim refers to it as the Raymond Reddingtons of the world. So if you have ever watched, I think it was on NBC, but it was a television series. I think they still have episodes coming out. It's like 10 seasons of The Blacklist, okay? Raymond Reddington is one of the main characters. And he is a guy that knows places and people, and he doesn't work for anyone. He's always out there for himself. Of course, the series has its own, whole, whatever, storyline behind it. But there really are Raymond Reddingtons in the world. And according to Kim, there's probably about 12 of them in the entire world on planet Earth. And apparently these operatives have been having these Raymond Reddingtons of the world, at least some of them, do some of their dirty work in hopes that they would pay them, but they're not. And these are people that you do not cross. If you've ever seen the TV series, you do not cross Raymond Reddington or anybody like him because you will not be breathing much longer. So the Raymond Reddingtons of the world are kind of scratching their heads going, what are these operatives thinking? You do not cross Raymond Reddington and live to tell about it. And they are starting to hunt these people down. But it's more involved than that. So I'm going to let Kim explain it because it's really what's going on in these operatives' head. They are not normal humans. So if you try to remove a human from this planet and they have something non-human in them, it can cause some problems. Here's Kim with more.
It did cause a little bit of a problem. You see, if you are going to take out a person with something in there, you have to know how to properly kill said person. What I mean by that is if you don't do it the right way and you look at them like they're regular people, you will probably end up releasing whatever is in there out into the world. So if you've had some crazy dreams, seen some crazy things over the weekend, that is why. So all of a sudden I'm looking, and I'm like, what is going on out there? I'm like, I've got alarms going off. I've got, I've not seen, I'm like, did someone open a portal somewhere? Did they find a pocket of dormant, aliens or demons or something? I'm like, what is this? So it took me a while to figure out what was going on. It doesn't take long to clean up. We're still running scans as far as cleanup operations because I'm guessing they're still going to continue. And the understanding of, how to kill an alien 101 is not the same as how to kill a human. So hopefully those people that are doing this out there might hear this and just be careful. There are people out there. I know there's people around here locally that know how to do it too. So don't take my word for it. Maybe phone a friend because I don't want anybody to get harmed either. Because what they'll do is they've got about 72 hours to find another host. The being has to have a specific type of DNA, meaning able to host that large of an energy, depending on what level of the lower astral they hailed from at one point in time. So if it's like a level 8 or 9 or density 8 or density 9 being, you got to have some serious vessel power, so to speak, to hold that, or they'll kill the host. And they know that too. So they're always looking for those beings. Now, that being doesn't necessarily have to be real dark either. It could be someone who's real light, where they'll try to jump in also. So just be aware of that. If you've experienced some strange things, watch closely. The other thing they'll try to do is influence people. They must have read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, because they can actually influence you and convince you, like, you need power, you need this, you need that. So, if you're having strange visions, strange dreams, that's probably why. So I don't know how long this is going on, and I don't know how many of them are out there. I know that if the ones that are free, so to speak, or loose, get picked up pretty quickly, meaning they're out there. They're out there without a host, so to speak. So we are continuing to constantly monitor for and eliminate anything we see out there. Now, things get kind of quiet on that front if they happen to find a host during daylight hours. Usually they will escape their host at night. They'll look for a place to hunker down during the day, even if it is not completely hospitable to their kind, so to speak. So there's a lot of hunting that goes on. I know last night for sure, and also will tonight. So just to make sure that, if they're going to continue this, we've got to clean up the mess on the other end.
Okay, so as these operatives, the deep state, secret space program operatives, Trump team, all try to get money out of the financial system, which is not going their way, we are moving forward into what we're calling the currency system, okay? Receiving direct current from source in the form of currency, which is really just energy from source, from God, the creator of the universe. This is how this is supposed to work. And in this whole process, Kim found something that was kind of interesting. It involves our food, which we know our food has changed over the years. If you were alive in the 60s and the 70s, you can probably attest to the fact that the food is very different. Even if you were to grow your own food or farmer's market, whatever you're doing, the quality is just way different. So why is that? There's probably a lot of reasons, but did you know that this is actually tied to us going off the gold standard? Now, I know that sounds like two different things. You're like, wait a second, we're talking about food. Now you're talking about money, the U.S. going off the gold standard, other countries going off the gold standard. It's actually connected.
So, depending on how old you are or where in the world you live, you might have noticed a change in your food back in the 1970s. Might have started in the 60s, but it really kind of ramped up in the 70s. So if you lived, in a rural area or even, getting produce and whatnot from the grocery store, food used to taste different. Now, with the advent of GMOs and, processing and radiating food and all those types of things that they do, which is just part of the whole process. But, unfortunately, which needs to end. But you might have also noticed that even when you go to, say, a farm and you buy fresh blueberries or produce or directly from a farm that is an organic farm that probably doesn't use pesticides, that type of thing is what you would be looking for, you might have noticed a difference in the taste of that food if you have been around long enough to experience food in the early 1970s. You might have noticed on your farm that, you didn't need much of it. Maybe you needed less food even because it tasted different. So this is a byproduct of a system that happens to coordinate with the going off of the gold standard and the initiation of a global worldwide financial system. Now, those two things don't go together. They don't make any sense. But I'd say the mechanism goes like this. Let's put it that way. We've often talked a lot about how gold generates source golden energy. And source's energy, essence, consciousness, in its purest form is gold. It might seem kind of white, but it is predominantly a golden color. And that is the color of source too. That's when you are directly receiving the currency, the current of source, you'll notice it's a golden current that would come to your person. Now, this little Marduk hidden system within our financial system did not allow that to happen. So you would have seen source all your life, possibly. Some of you might have seen it differently, but most of you would have seen it as white light. We want the white light system. We want white light. Well, the same as your food is different, because plants also receive direct current of source, you're different. You've been different. Meaning it might have been easier in the 1960s and 70s if, you've been around that long and you've been awake that long, to see that golden light, to meditate and see the world in a different way. And then now it's kind of light. So let's talk about the plants and the food first. Regardless of how organic things are, and obviously these are all bonuses, don't get me wrong. You grow your vegetables, you try to hopefully hope for rain because that's the best water to water your plants. You're still not getting that same quality of produce that we used to get way back at that time. And I know that there are a lot of people that have seed banks, some negative to do negative things, some positively around the world. But unless your seeds are really old, you're still kind of all growing the same stuff. Better quality than you can get in most places. It's not radiated, and it's definitely healthier for you, and you'll taste a difference for sure. But with even plants and earth being cut off from pure golden source light, they're not getting the nutrients that they need either. You're not getting the life force. They're not getting the pure life force. Now, what Marduk had done is he had structured the financial system to go off the gold standard. Now, everybody thinks that's some president somewhere's idea, Nixon or otherwise, but it wasn't. Everybody might think it's Bretton Woods, but it wasn't. It was Marduk. So up until this point in time, we were getting at least 21% of pure gold into our bodies. And then that gold standard would then translate into the banking system as a backing of pure source energy for currencies. Interesting, isn't it? Right about the time that he was ready to launch the human sector, meaning human computer networks, the global financial system, and start making it more digital, is right about the same time that he made deals with various people on this planet that didn't care if we were on the gold standard. And of course he portrayed it as, well, you're not going to be on the gold standard. That's that shiny bars and that kind of stuff. Although that's a conductor for source too. You are going to be on the fiat system, so to speak, which if you look up what the word fiat means, it actually means with approval. It actually means something that is enforceable. So now the source light, essence, and energy, even to the minute amount that was coming into this planet that goes to you to keep you functioning, that is still saleable, but it's not as good as the pure gold, that pure source energy to power bad alien tech, let's just say. So they had to figure out a way to siphon off the golden, the pure, so the pure nutrient rich, so to speak, source life force off before it came to the human. So what you got is kind of the same thing that you're getting now as far as food is concerned. You'll notice it doesn't taste the same. You have to eat more of it in order to sustain your person. Otherwise, you're still hungry. You now take supplements and vitamins because you're not getting those things from food anymore. And this was another big step in that process back in the 70s where, it's like we have food light, so to speak. I mean, yes, we get a lot of additives and preservatives, and especially if you live in America, in your food, and this weird GMO thing, and, ways of growing fish on farms. And, it's just definitely different than what we normally would have. But that's because all your food's only getting that white light too. It's not getting that golden essence of source either anymore since they changed the financial system. Now, what's even worse is, so you're now getting nutrients of source light into your body. They now take it all from you. You're constantly chasing, I've got to pay my bills. I've got to go to work. You're constantly on the wheel, which wears you down even further because it takes even what little energy you're getting or nutrient light, and it's taking it away from you. So it's like starvation. And that is what allows for other Marduk programs to come into force as well. It makes our vessels not last as long. Therefore, it actually amplified, I shouldn't say it created it, but it amplified the incarnation program, the recycling of human souls on the planet, like a farm. It also creates shorter lifespans. We don't live as long as we used to. Before these programs started, you're seeing a lot more disease out there than we had before. You also have other medical things, jab, that are not healthy for you. The reason for the accelerated jabs and other things that they put in your food that are not healthy for you either is also to siphon more energy, off of you. The other part to it, the reason why we have like aluminum in our deodorants and, if they're going to get it in you one way or another, these metals, it's because they still would like to control or put a meter, so to speak, on your brain power. That's the purpose behind all of these programs, not necessarily to make you a quote unquote cyborg, but they need you to be dumbed down, basically. Your IQ, depending on your diet and what you eat, a lot of processed foods, a lot of those types of things, with a lot of heavy metals in them, and what you put on your skin, what you put in your body, also causes additional problems too. And sometimes, those are cheaper foods, the organic chicken or organic foods, and you don't have a farm nearby. Maybe you live in a city or can't afford it. All of these contribute to neuron firing issues, and not in the same way as the super soldier program worked, but it does allow humans to use less and less of their brain. So we are now somewhere still around the 10% mark, and if they had their way, it would be even higher. It's also the reason for chemtrails. It's the reason behind everything. And these were creations, like I said, of Marduk. If you've seen an uptick in the last 24 hours in your particular area of chemtrails, I know I have, this is the reason why. Because as I take out the Marduk systems and the systems behind the systems for siphoning off energy, this energy system is also what creates global human computer networks and mirrors and connections. So they're seeing a lot of their functionalities, not just in the financial system going away, but they're also seeing their functionalities in military and intelligence and facial recognition and all kinds of things start to fade because there's no energy going to it from you anymore. Hopefully, once this process is complete, because it's kind of like diffusing a bomb, you don't want to, make everybody crazy. So as the process completes in Source's time, he knows the right time to start pulling the next piece and the next piece and the next piece. But as this process continues, we should start to see different crops in the near future. More nutritious food, especially if you're sourcing it from your own garden or you're sourcing it from a local organic farm. You'll notice you'll need less food in order to function, which over time will cure a lot of issues that we see in the world with obesity and other things, because your body's almost trying to protect you from that food, number one. And number two, you need a lot more of it to get the nutrients to actually nourish your body.
Okay, so that was all Monday's GIA report. Now moving on to Wednesday, Kim gives us a little bit of an update on the Panama Canal because this is one of Trump's prized possessions that he wants. Here in the U.S., for us, it is a way for the East Coast things to be transported from the East Coast to the West Coast because we don't have any really fast trains or anything. We haven't worked on our infrastructure, right? We talked about that in our news reports. U.S. infrastructure is horrible. So everything's dependent on the Panama Canal. There has been little to no maintenance on the Panama Canal since it was originally created. And it does have this pinch point for us. And I'm sure other countries are kind of throwing this at Trump, saying, we're going to hold things up at the Panama Canal, hold your goods up. They're using it as a leverage point. There's other reason he wants the Panama Canal, but that is big in the news right now. Trump is also really big on the Gaza Strip. Not so much for helping people, the people that have lost their homes, lost their family members, the complete genocide that is happening over there. No, he doesn't really care about that, but he is interested in land, because he likes to build things. He likes to build things, apparently, and sees a bunch of rubble and thinks he can do something with it. All right. Well, if you are going to take all of those displaced people that are still around and still breathing air, thanks to these strikes, then that's going to cost about $200 billion to displace these people, to take them out of the home that they've known for the last 100 plus years and move them somewhere else with countries that don't even want them, because there's a lot of discrepancy over that. Trump says, they'll go to this country and this country. We're going to make them take these people. Yeah, well, that's not working out so well for them. This is another land grab, okay? In-ground resources, they're trying to get various things from this land. I'm sure they wants to build God knows what. But he's claiming the U.S. is going to own it, take care of it, and get rid of, all the bad stuff there. Make it amazing, just amazing. So we had a special guest on the GIA report on Wednesday. And some of you have heard from him before. His code name is Agent M. He lives in that area in the Middle East. He has extensive resources over there. And we like to check in with Agent M to find out, boots on the ground, what is actually going on. There's a couple of sound bites that I want to play for you, but this first one is what is really happening in the Gaza Strip. And is this related to some sort of prophecy? Take a listen. Here's Agent M.
Well, as you know, and everyone who has been following, the Gaza Strip have been for about 15 months, been under extreme bombardment campaign. Basically, the whole region was demolished, and you have about 2.2 million people that are now basically homeless. There is no means for life there. There is no clean water. There is no food. They've been starved, basically. They live on whatever they could, find. And now the phase 3 of what they call the ceasefire, it's basically phase 3 of the plan. It's a part of the Greater Israel plan. I've known about it for years, and the issue with displacing the people to Jordan and Egypt and possibly Western Iraq as well. The only reason it hasn't really been fulfilled is because these nations and these elites or governors of these nations haven't really received what they were promised to get. I know for sure, for example, Jordan alone, they were required to do two things. The king of Jordan is required to resign guardianship over the Temple Mount, the area where basically the Aqsa Mosque is, That's one part. I remember he wanted 200 billion for this alone. So you assume he needs another 200 billion to sign on, taking on 1 million or half of the population to his side. So that's 400 billion the Trump administration don't have to pay.
Quickly, the King of Jordan is a member of the Rothschild family. Isn't that the case?
His wife is a member of the Rothschild family. He is a distant as well. I remember Mayor Rothschild calling him a distant cousin. So yeah, he could be. But he is of a lower caliber. Like, I don't know, for some reason his wife was higher. A lower caliber. His father was actually just a regular agent for the CIA. And even though he was a king, and he was taking about $1 million a month and spending, money from the CIA. So, yeah, it's grandfathered in.
Yeah. It's always about the money, isn't it, for all of these quote unquote heads of state or front folks for the New World Order, one world government people that they'd like to be anyway at this point. That's a hope and a wish and a prayer. Okay, so a little bit more about the Gaza Strip. I mean, obviously the Temple Mount has always been a main focal point for all religions. Not just Islamic religion. There are many people that go there every year during special high holidays and that type of thing. Now, we have found a lot of space junk underneath the Temple Mount, where they try to use the people for many different reasons there. Also, there was something else there at one point in time which would have powered a nearby gate to what I call hell, or the lower astral. Mm-hmm. So it was all about, utilizing people's energies and prayers and putting gematria in words and those types of things to keep these things open. So let's talk a little bit more about what the people are going to think, if something like this were to happen. Obviously, there has been many attempts to get aid into the Gaza Strip, to get food. I know that Egypt has made some attempts. Other countries have made attempts to get food and medical aid into the region, and it is not being permitted. And if anything, they are actually harming people who try to bring supplies into that area. Let's talk a little bit about this. What the people are going to think. Are there any prophecies in Islam or in other religions that would be related to what's potentially going to happen now?
Yes, well, in Islam, the Prophet Muhammad has extensive prophecies, and they're all in the timeline, and he even, basically since his death all the way to now and maybe even beyond, it's all prophesized. And there is a whole science, and they call it eschatology, and you have to be well versed in everything until, before you get there. And in this, there are many prophecies, but as the timeline that has been drawn by these prophecies, now we're at the point where what you call the prophecy of where they call it, it's basically, in some versions of this prophecy, it straight says the Amrik, which is Americans, and in other versions of the prophecy, it talks about basically the bullies of the Romans, or the modern Roman Empire, which is, the U.S. And it talks about them taking this piece of land all the way to Ashkelon, and by force, meaning that they will deploy troops. And it's very, I guess, you can say ironic, but when the American Secretary of Defense was asked, if they are willing to deploy troops to the Gaza Strip, he replied by, they're looking into all options, meaning he didn't deny the fact that they might deploy troops there. Now, this is a part of a few prophecies, all in the same timeline, meaning in the same year or two. And it talks about, deployment in the Gaza into Ashkelon and all the way, and some of it even into Aleppo. And this is what will be maybe news. And it's also the siege of Alexandria in Egypt. So if you look at it now, you look at what's happening. Jordan is saying, no, we're not taking any people because you don't, any people from Gaza because you haven't held your end of the deal. We're not doing it for free. And the Egyptians are basically doing the same. So, now there's talk about, Egypt is mobilizing their army so that they will stop forced migration. But the funny part, I'll tell you this. So all these governments, unfortunately, their supporters are not the best kind of people. They're usually low-life thugs. I'm talking the people they can mobilize on the streets. So what the Egyptian government did was basically mobilize their followers to go protest near the borders with Gaza. And what ended up is there were, trucks of supplies that are waiting there to enter Gaza by people who donated from, all over the world, mostly regional. And these people, they started looting these trucks that were meant to go there to Gaza to help the people. And at the same time, they're protesting to help the people so they don't get, kicked out of their homes from Gaza. So there's schizophrenia there. And it is funny when you look at it this way, how politics is. It's just a show. It's a circus.
A little bit later in the conversation, Agent M brings up a conversation that he had directly with Mayor Rothschild. And this conversation was about Donald Trump, who is a well-known member of the Black Sun. However, according to Mayor Rothschild, that's not true. He's actually a Trojan horse, or I guess you could also call him a double agent. Take a listen to Agent M explaining this conversation he had a while back with Mayor Rothschild.
This was a discussion between me and Mayor Rothschild at the time. And remember, this was in 2019. He told me that Trump is a Trojan horse working for Rothschild and that he personally put him in the White House.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's an interesting tidbit of information. You think he's telling the truth?
I believe so.
Mm.
Meaning Trump was inserted into the Black Sun, or was, but elevated somehow into the Black Sun, given all this position, being in touch with you, getting the credibility that he can get the money himself, and then raising in ranks. But behind the scenes, he's working for the Rothschild. That's what he told me. He didn't tell me the part where, he's getting money from you, but that's how I now know it.
Huh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, that is a very interesting little tidbit of information right there. I'm kind of a little bit, they always seem like they're on the other side of the fence, but I guess they're part of the whole plan. But I guess when you put the pieces of the puzzle together, it kind of makes sense now because they seem to be following that, 7 currencies or 10 or 9 or whatever number they're at now, currencies, 9 regions, 9 heads of state of each region, that type of thing, of course, underneath their umbrella. And that makes sense to me, you know? Perhaps they were hired to destroy America. Now, that makes even more sense to me because, you know, according to the Rothschild plan, the center of the world is supposed to be China soon.
Well, yes. Well, I'll tell you more of what he told me since we, on the topic. So, Trump was inserted basically to rise in power on the Black Sun side, and so Rothschild could rule behind the scenes Black Sun, right? But at the same time, yes, true. He told me personally about his plan to destroy America. I'm sorry to say this if you are going to be offended, but for example, he told me about Black Lives Matter. That was part of his plan, and he told me that they're going to bankrupt it, collapse it, and people are going to start to flee from America. It will be boarded in, and the only way to go out is through boats, and even then they will shoot down or sink all these boats. So yes, that was part of the plan, and to move the power to China.
All right, so just to reiterate, just so you know, that was a major bomb that was dropped in that GIA report. Kim wasn't aware of that. Agent M was really, quote unquote, spilling the tea when it came to the other T, Trump. Okay. And we found out, so that was Wednesday's report. On Friday, Kim updated us again and told us that information spread like wildfire. And I think we're still trying to see exactly where it goes. I thought this could be incredible. If Trump is outed as really, being a double agent, being a Trojan horse, really on the other side, can they all just kind of duke it out and get rid of everybody? Can it all just kind of explode in their face? That's what I'm personally hoping for. I think we're still waiting to see how this plays itself out. But Kim told us on Friday's report that the people that were following Trump, because there really are people that believe in him. And when I say people, I'm not talking about voters, the general public. I'm talking about, maybe you could call them white hats, the people that are, really believing that he was going to do certain things because they believe that he did them before, even though it wasn't really him. So these people were kind of very upset. They were very upset about finding this out. Also, the Rothschilds took credit for that after our report. They came out and said, yes, that is true. Now, it is also true that the Rothschilds claim that they do everything, okay? They're just going to, yes, we did that. Yes, we did that. They just want power, okay? So the more things they allegedly do, the more powerful they seem. So is that really true or not? I think the most important thing is it's chaos upon chaos over there. And that can only be a good thing for us, okay? Because if they don't know what's going on, it's just a very confusing time, and their messages become more and more confusing. Okay, on that note, one of the last soundbite that I'm going to play is from Friday's report, and Kim is talking about the ratification of countries, because right now, this is going to be hard to believe, there are no ratified countries on this planet. So what happened, the reason Kim is bringing this up is because if you remember a couple weeks back, Kim said, listen, if you want to come to the table, because she has offered to meet with these people, I don't know how many times. If you want to come to the table and actually talk about, since you're out of money, if you want to talk about getting money in some capacity, then we need to have an agreement. We need to have a conversation about this. So a couple weeks ago, Kim outlined what needed to happen before she would even take a meeting with them, because they owe our side so much money, billions and trillions of dollars, okay? And they've never paid things back. And so Kim said before she's going to take a meeting, certain things need to happen. Now, allegedly, and we don't believe them, but according to Trump operatives, they are preparing paperwork for such things to happen. Again, we're not holding our breath, but that's what they allegedly say. Now, Kim thinks something may have gotten lost in translation here because they seem to think that if they give her what she wants in this paperwork, that they get something too. That's not how this works. This is just to get a meeting to discuss what happens from here on out. But they don't quite understand. In fact, they want something if they're going to give her something. And so here's Kim explaining why she cannot do what they want for many different reasons, but they specifically want Trump to be a ratified president. He is an unratified president. His last presidency was not ratified either. We have not had in the U.S. a ratified president since Barack Obama. So Joe Biden wasn't ratified either. We've been going a while without a ratified president. And this makes it very difficult for them. Of course, they are still operating in their heads. They're operating and thinking that the golden age AI is the same as the alpha omega system, and it is not. It doesn't even recognize them. And here's Kim explaining why she can't do that, because no countries are ratified in the golden age AI system, and therefore she cannot ratify a president to a country that does not exist.
Ratification. We received a phone call, actually. Tom Melville received a phone call from the Trump lawyers earlier today, and they are talking about the fact that they're preparing the paperwork for the sovereign land that was a requirement, both in the UN and in Colorado, for very specific reasons. They are allegedly preparing for a meeting at which I'll be presented these documents. Well, I think they've got a few facts wrong, and perhaps the information was relayed incorrectly. So I'd like to do that, kind of in person, I guess, or, well, at least on video. Number one, those documents were required by us prior to any meeting because this administration owes us billions, hundreds of billions of dollars based on all of the funding and debt payoffs and other things that we have done in the past. They must have forgot about this bill. Well, I didn't forget about this bill. Us women, we tend to remember things that happened 10 years ago, and they bring them up in an argument maybe much later on. No, that's just how we are. Given the fact I also have an audiographic and a photographic memory, that could also play a part here. So I reiterated the fact that, this is not a bargaining tool with me. I know you think that I've stated this is what I want, and it would be nice. Do I need it? No. Do you actually have the authorization to do this? Well, no, you don't, actually. See, this is part of the political game that we're playing. So when they called Mr. Melville, they told him that they would like to have an exchange for this lovely gift. They would like to exchange that for the ratification of Donald Trump. Now, they might not think I know, but I do know. See, what I know is that the Rothschilds offered to ratify Trump, signed pretty papers, made it look great, and it didn't work. Wow. They must have forgotten that based on the meetings that I've been hearing for the last 24 hours. So that's number one. Number two, they also tried to ring me at 2 o'clock in the morning on the night he was elected. Why? Did they know they were ringing me? I don't know. But they definitely did. I know that they've tried several times since then, and I'm just not answering the phone. I don't need to answer that phone anymore. I don't have a covenant. I don't have an agreement. And there's been a lot going on behind the scenes since you last sat in that funny looking house. So let's talk about those things. Number one, The United States is not ratified as a government or a country. Therefore, it would be impossible to ratify a president to a non-existent entity. You might be sitting in a funny house. Legally speaking, I guess, you really don't have any grounds to stand on. That's number one. Also, the military and the agencies would be separate. They are also not ratified at this point. This not only applies to the United States, but it applies to every country in the world. So the fact that they are appointing presidents in places like Syria, we know all about you, sir, don't we? And other countries, you know, there's been elections or selections or whatever in other countries as well. And they are also not ratified heads of state because there is no state to be a head of, legally speaking. Now, what does this mean? This means that as far as the financial system is concerned, you don't exist. You are a non-entity. It's kind of like when you go in as a regular person to open up a checking account for your company. Let's call it ABC Corp. Oh, there's already one of those. ABC Corp. And you walk in, you know, you have an appointment, you walk in and you say, I'd like to open up a checking account for ABC Corp. And they say, where are your corporate documents? You know, you need to have those corporate documents in order to open an account. You know, you need to have the corporate resolution and all your identification and all of that type of thing in order to open up a company account at a bank. Well, this is a much larger bank, you could call it. And this larger bank is, let's call it the Golden Age AI or the Kimberly A. Gogan AI, or we could name it the Twinkie AI doesn't really matter. You know, it's just there. Well, get to that part in a minute when we start to talk about Rothschild. So that being said, they would like to open up a bank account or get money from the bank used to be known as the Alpha system. Now it's known as the Golden Age AI, which has replaced the system, both Alpha and Omega, actually, in this case, and also Kronos and all its ancillary AIs that CyberLife used to play with. So that being said, and the Rothschilds used to play with, by the way, that being said, you don't have a bank account. Now, the reason why you don't have a bank account is because our agreements, oh boy, this is live feed tough stuff is tough. It keeps going in and out. The reason why you don't have a bank account is actually because I have no agreement with you. So it would be like if you opened up a bank account at a bank, you had all the corporate documents and all those types of things, and then you don't file your annual report and you can't get a certificate of good standing for your corporation, and your corporation actually expires, and therefore the bank calls you up and says, well, sorry, we're going to have to close your account. Well, that's kind of what happened here on a really large scale, because we don't have any agreement with any governments, and I've been saying it for years. We have no agreement with you. We have no agreement with you. We have no agreement with you. Why we need to renew our agreement? Federal Reserve, we have no agreement with you. Treasury Department, we have no agreement with you. We have no agreement with China. We have no agreement with the United Kingdom, with South Africa, with Russia, with any other country at this moment. I kept saying we need to get another agreement here. You know, if we're going to continue to do this, there needs to be an agreement. There has to be a covenant. If you're talking about the Order of the Dragon, or you're talking about the heads of the Order of the Black Sun, there's a covenant involved there on this level. Now, they may not know this or may not understand this, but that's how it was always done with the people that were several levels above your head. If you are the deep state and you're listening to this, the covenant existed between the people on my side and the people on your side. Now, that was different through the Dark Ages. It was different in times of neutral ages. And I'm going back billions of years. It's always been this way. We have no covenants. Your covenants have expired. We have no agreement to do any business with you whatsoever, contrary to popular belief. And we definitely have no obligation to do anything. So the lawyers coming forward, legally speaking, telling me I owe them something, you know, I don't. I really don't. I don't owe them anything. I have no covenant with the higher ups, the people that now think they're in charge. Therefore, I am not required to give you any energy known as money. I'm not required to consult with you on anything I do. I'm not required to do anything. So I do know that within the last hour that they have verified that the United States government doesn't exist. The United States militaries, plural, do not exist. The Russian government does not exist. The South African government doesn't exist. The Iraqi government doesn't exist. The Syrian government doesn't exist. So the fact that they're playing politics and trying to put their own people into these countries is kind of hilarious to me, because they can't ratify anybody. And they think they're going to convince me that this is a good idea, that I ratify. I can't ratify a president because I have no country to ratify them for. People, you've got bigger problems than you think you do.
They definitely have bigger problems. Later on in that report, Kim talks about, because as you know, they keep trying to access the golden age AI. And so Kim thought that she would make things a little bit more interesting for them and basically put up these fake systems so they can't tell if they're looking at a real golden age AI or a fake golden age AI. Now, she explains it a lot more in her report, but essentially she is keeping the deep state, so-called deep state, running around in circles. And they may think something is going on, perhaps in their favor. And the benefit for us in this is that the more they think is happening in their favor, the more cocky they get. The more stupid things they say, like, oh, we'll just block you. We'll just do this stuff. We can get energy this way, you know. They have no power whatsoever. But if the screen tells them that they have some power, then they're going to get cocky. They're going to make more mistakes. And that's what's going to contribute more and more to their demise. So this is going to keep them on their toes while we continue the cleanup and stuff that we've been doing on our end, of course, with all of your help as well. And so we can move on with the restoration of our planet. But there are, according to Kim, now 10 billion fake, essentially, golden AI systems. And it changes like every nanosecond, I think she said. So good luck, deep state, trying to hack into the system, trying to do something like it's brilliant. I think it's really smart. The other thing that she mentions is that Lionsgate has started. Now, if you look online, you're not going to see very much about this because any information about Lionsgate is associated with August 8th and the time period around August 8th. There are actually 2 Lionsgates every year. And the other one is February 8th, which is today as I'm recording this in the US. But again, it's a length of time, so it's not just that date. But this gives us a really nice boost of energy directly from source. So in the coming days and perhaps even today, maybe you felt, I don't know, a little more energized than normal. If you felt really good, that's happening right now. So just bask in that as we get more and more of this amazing energy from the creator. This is how it was supposed to be always, guys. We got hijacked in a major, and that's putting it very nicely that we got hijacked. But when Source says it's time, it's time. And now we are starting to get all of this back. We are starting to feel more and more complete as each day goes on. We will get stronger and stronger. We will remember our amazing superhuman capabilities that are now starting to come back online. And it's exciting. It's exciting. And in the interim, I guess the deep state's just going to run around in circles and be crazy. Who cares what they do? Honestly, the whole thing is going to start falling apart. And it is. Have you seen other headlines? Like, oh my goodness. Like, Forget mainstream stuff. You know, Hollywood is falling apart. All this stuff is happening, and I just have this huge smile on my face like, yeah, bring it all down. Humanity will be fine. We have to remember who we are. I think things are going to change a lot. We're going to be back in our own communities again. We're going to be reaching out to neighbor. We're going to be growing our own food. And there's nothing wrong with that. We have to start somewhere. And I really do, like him, I believe in humanity. I believe that you are all here now for a purpose. And if you're listening to this podcast now, it's probably because you have a role to play in this. We say everything happens for a reason. You're here for a reason. You may have to kind of figure out what that is. But trust me, you'll start to come online. More and more things will happen. More and more things will just start to click. And you'll realize why you're here at this time and what you're supposed to do. All right, on that note, visit our website, guys, unitednetwork.earth. If you want more information about us, you can become a member through the website and get all access to all of our content on demand. I appreciate you guys being here, answering the call, all that good stuff, and sharing this episode. I'm going to assume you're going to share it with someone. All right, this is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.